Okay. Okay, great. Thanks everyone for joining me. Today we'll be talking about in our webinar SharePoint Tasks and InfoPath Forms. So what I actually have today is a quick demo of an XDP template part. It's a tasks template part, and we'll be integrating it with SharePoint Workflow, and we'll also be adding that XDP to an InfoPath form, and how to exactly do that, and what exactly does this task XDP do. And I'll just be talking a little bit about SharePoint Tasks and InfoPath Forms just before then. So if you do have any questions at any point, feel free to jump in. Go ahead and just type it out in the chat window. The presentation will be fairly short, so I think I'll leave the questions to be answered at the very end of the presentation. I think it'll only take me about 15-20 minutes to get through the whole thing. So I'll just kind of get through all that, and I'll take answers at the very end. So definitely stick around. If you do have any questions, feel free to jump on the chat window and just ask away. Okay, so SharePoint Tasks. If you are not familiar with SharePoint Tasks, there is a out-of-the-box list type in SharePoint that SharePoint offers that is based on tasks. You can obviously customize this task list however way you want. You can add new fields. You can hide some of the fields if you don't prefer to have some of the fields that are existing there. You can always create your own custom list that acts as its own task form. So utilize this if you want, and you're definitely allowed to not to as well, and create your own custom tasks. Typically, the task list is associated with workflows. So whether you're building a custom workflow, it will create a task in the task list. Whether you're creating an out-of-box workflow, it'll also create a task in the task list as well. As I mentioned before, there's many fields that come out of the box with the task list, like assigned to, you can have status, the percentage of how it's completed. You have related content, predecessors, you have due date, and so forth. So there's many, many different fields that are typical to a task that you would want in a task list. So we'll actually go through a couple of these in a little bit more detail, and I'll show you how to utilize this in your InfoPath form. On the flip side of things, there's the InfoPath forms themselves. How would you go and integrate SharePoint tasks into InfoPath forms? Well, there's a couple of ways that you could do it, but the technique that I'm going to show you today involves a template part. And we're going to go and integrate tasks into basically any InfoPath form that you want via these template parts. Why is this great? It's really good because it's completely customizable. You can make it so that it will connect to the task list. You can make it modify the task list directly from the InfoPath form. There's many different options in what you can actually do, which is why this particular scenario is very intriguing. So, this is one approach that I'm taking using template parts. You can absolutely do pretty much anything you want. If you are familiar with InfoPath and do know how to use the InfoPath designer very well, you can build almost anything that you want to connect directly to the task form. So with Q rules, one of the common library that we offer here at Qdabra, I'm going to use some of the techniques in Q rules to write back to the task lists. And I'll kind of call out whenever I use Q rules in case you don't have Q rules and you do want to leverage this particular scenario. You definitely can. There are some things that I took for liberty in terms of having Q rules, so I'll call those out to say, okay, well, you need Q rules to do this part, but to do this other part, you don't need Q rules. So creating this XDP, what's involved in this template part exactly? Well, I use the user profile service. Now that's out of the box, so you don't need to utilize Q rules for that. But the user profile service is just a service that SharePoint provides that allows you to gather more data on the users. So in particular, the current user. So I can go in and I can figure out who their manager is. I can figure out their title. Depending on how well the metadata is populated in the user profile service, that will determine how much information I can gather for that person. I'm writing to a SharePoint list directly from the InfoPath form itself. So this will actually require key rules. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to write to the SharePoint list. But that's okay. If you don't need that requirement, then you can absolutely leave this out. If you do just want to look up the tasks that are associated to an individual item, you could do that using secondary data connections. So simply create a secondary data connection to the task list, and then you can show all the tasks that are currently open. And finally, if you do want to just look at all the tasks that are assigned to maybe a particular person, or look at all the tasks that are assigned to a particular item, then you do need to go and filter any of the tasks that you pull in from the secondary data connection. So we do utilize filtering in this XDP as well. All right, so I have my demo. Shouldn't take too long. Basically, I'll walk you through the task XDP that I've created here. How do we exactly add this XDP to the form, and how do we utilize this task XDP in my form itself? Like, how do I actually go in and modify a task, or approve a task, or just look up data on a task? Okay, so I will get out of my presentation here and go into InfoPath. All right, so I'm going to start off with a very simple form. This is what my form looks like. It's a new request form, and it just has a title. This form could be a lot more complicated if I want to, of course, and I'm not going to make it just for the sake of the demo. But if you do have an existing form, this is a good opportunity to just add an XDP at the very bottom so that you can go and view tasks that are associated to a form. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is to refresh your memory, if you're not familiar with it, how to add a template part to InfoPath. So I just opened up the controls task pane by clicking on this anchor button on the bottom right here. Go ahead and click Add, Remove Controls, and I'll click on Add. And there's a template part option at the top. So I will go in and add a template part. That template part, I'm going to put it here. Here's my template part, my tasks XDP. Right, so click on Finish. Great, looks like the tasks got added, and click on OK. So if I scroll down again here, you can see I just added this new tasks XDP. So I'm going to click and drag it and add it to my form. And here's what my tasks XDP looks like. And I have instructions on the form here as well. So if you are familiar with adding XDPs, typically there's going to be a little more extra work that you need to do in order to get the XDP to work, because you need to make sure that it's, the data connections are correct, maybe some of the filters are broken, and so forth. So I do have just these quick 6 steps, so I'll walk you through, what I did in this XDP in order to make it work with my my form. So the first thing is the formatting rules. I only want the tasks that are actually associated to this particular item, this current item, to be displayed in this tasks repeating table. So I'm going to go and modify this repeating this repeating table's rules, and I just want to make sure that the description is not equal to title. So all this is saying is that description is a field that's an attribute of related content, and that's going to show up in the task itself, and that's going to be available out of the box if you're using the out-of-box SharePoint Tasks list. So this description will show what item this is actually associated to, what other SharePoint item. So if this is related to this current item, which I have as title, then it's going to show me this in the task list. If it's not equal to it, then that's when it's going to hide. So similarly, I'm going to do the same thing for this bottom one. So, okay, so that's the first step. The second thing to do in order to make this work is I need to go and update this drop down here. And again, I'll walk you through this task XDP after I do these kind of cleanup instructions. I need to change the filter to something similar. I need to change the description, make it equal to, make it equal to the title as well. All right, I need to edit these buttons. This XDP assumes that you have Q rules installed. If you don't have Q rules, then you simply can't edit the tasks item itself. You can do a lookup. You could say, okay, I can show you all the tasks that are associated to this list. I can show you all the completed tasks associated to this list item. But I'm not going to be able to go and actually approve or reject or take any action on any of the tasks while I am in the InfoPath form. So that would be the one thing that you wouldn't be able to do if you didn't have Q rules. Otherwise, you could be able to do everything else. So I need to find the submit to SharePoint rule, and I need to go and just update this command. Excuse me. Update this command to the Qdabra rules command. So there's just a few of them, so just going to do that real quick. And then for the reject, I've got to do the same thing. And then optional that I would recommend is just I need to remove the Qdabra rules task because I'm not going to be using this anymore. I'm just using the one that came with the form itself. So it cleans up the form a little bit. All right, the next thing I want to do is I want to add a submit data connection. So go add submit data connection to a web service. I want to add this to my server, which is I'm going to use the lists.asmx web service. This comes out of the box with SharePoint, and this comes with a bunch of operations that allows me to manipulate lists in SharePoint. So the operation that I want is update list items. And if you are familiar, if you do have Q rules, or if you are familiar with the submit to SharePoint list functionality, this will be very you've seen this before. So with the list name, I need to go in and choose this mapping secondary data connection, list collection, and updates. I need to do the same thing. Go to mapping, and I need to select batch. And this include, I need to go to the XML subtree. So, so that would be familiar if you have used submit to SharePoint list before. If you haven't used the submit to SharePoint list command in Q rules, that's something to check out. We do have a blog post on that, so if you are curious, I don't want to spend too much time explaining what I did just there, but if you are curious, check out the blog post on that. Okay, click on next. And finally, I'm just going to rename this data connection to something a little bit simpler, SP submit, and I'm going to uncheck this default. Okay. And last thing I want to do here, really quick, as another last cleanup thing, I just want to rename my mapping data connection to just mapping. So it's just a little bit cleaner there. And that's it. That's all I needed to do to update it. So I'm going to go ahead and delete these instructions. And I'm going to go and publish this to the server, and then I'll show you what it does. I have a tasks library already published here, so I'm just going to update that form. And next, publish. And just wait a few seconds while it publishes. Should be pretty quick. There we go. Okay. Now we're going to go into the browser, and I'll show you what the form does. Okay. So this is my task library. Now what I have created in this task library is just a form library. It's nothing too fancy. But the key thing is I associated a couple of workflows with this task library. So let's see, it should load here in a second. Oh, I'm in the wrong person. Task library and library. So I have workflow associated here. So if I go into my workflow settings, I have two workflows associated to this library. I have a task approval workflow, and I have a task feedback workflow. I can have additional workflows associated with it. These are just out-of-box workflows, so they're very simple. I can have custom workflows associated with it if I wanted to. But for now, I have just these two workflows. So let's go and create a new task in my task library. Oops, wrong button. We'll create a new document. Here's my form. I'm going to create a new, I'll call it request. Just call it generate report, and we'll just click on save. Okay. So now you can see I have a generate report. It's that's what's here at the very top. It automatically launched a workflow for me, this task approval workflow. The task feedback is empty because I didn't set it to launch automatically when the item gets created. I can only launch it manually, so I'll do that right now. So I'm just launching the workflow. Let's give it a due date. Let's give it, say, tomorrow. Click start. Okay, good. That was pretty fast. So now this generate workflow, this generate report task has 2 workflows associated with it. So if I take a look at the tasks list, at the very bottom you can see that there's 2 new tasks that are created that are associated to that item. So I have please approve generate report and please review generate report. And in the far right here, there's also related content. So you can see that it's actually associated to this particular item in this other library. So if I go to the task library again, and if I open up generate report, so here I can go and I can see all my requests. Now, of course, I only have this title here, but you could imagine there's a lot more content. I can go and view it. I can see all the tasks that are associated with this particular request. So if I expand this drop-down, I can see, okay, well, there's these 2 tasks that are associated with it, right? And I can see the due date for one of them. So that's the one that I just added as the due date. The approval one didn't add a due date by default, which is fine. It just didn't, the approval workflow didn't add that. It wasn't set to add the due date. So I can see all the tasks that way. The second thing I can do is I can actually go and see all the completed tasks that are associated with it. There aren't any, which is fine, but we'll see a completed task in a second here. You can see, I can expand and collapse it, so it's pretty nice. It's not very in your face, but I can also go in and perform actions on these tasks. So there's a task title drop down here, and this shows you all of the tasks that I can take action on. Okay, if I go in, I can change who I am. So here I'm not myself, I'm Joe User, and if I go, I need to refresh this to show the generate report. If I click on Generate Report now, and if I can see all the tasks, because I can always see all the tasks that are assigned to this particular item. But then if I try to drop the drop down here, I don't see anything because they're not assigned to me. These are assigned to Anson, which is my other login. So I'm logged in as Joe User now, and I can't use these the approve and reject buttons because they're not assigned to me. And that utilizes the user profile service. So you use the user profile service to determine who you are, compare it to the assigned to. You can use other functions as well. If you have DBXL, you could use the Active Directory web service and utilize groups that way. But the way that the tasks XDP is kind of showing you right now is just assigned to individual people. But you can certainly expand it to be to allow groups as well. Okay, so I'm going to go in and approve this this review. And a comment there. Click on approve. So now what this is going to do is it's actually going to go and approve this task immediately from this form. Don't need to go to the task form. Don't need to leave the form. It looks like it got sent correctly. If I go and I expand my tasks, you can see there's only one active task now. The other task is gone. If I go and expand completed tasks, you can see that now this task is down here because it's been completed, and I have my description down here. That's the comment that I had originally put in the other section. So if I close the form, and let's just go take another quick look at the tasks. If I go to the task list, you can see that the review generate report task, the status is now simply completed, and if I open it up, the description is not in the view. You can see all the stuff that I put in, the description and so forth. Oh, it's not here either. But the descriptions associated with the task, I can go in and update a bunch of the other fields if I wanted to. I only updated a couple of the fields, but if I want to update the percentage completed, I want to update the title I say, I want to update the assigned to, I can go and do that as well. That's it. I think that's pretty much it with my presentation. If you do have any questions, please add them to the chat window. I do have a couple of quick announcements as well. The first announcement is that we do have a couple of training classes coming up in October. The first one is going to be in the week of October 22nd. We're doing another InfoPath 101 course. If you are familiar with our master class and thought that the master class was just a little bit too advanced, the 101 class is really great because it's a course that really assumes that you know absolutely nothing. So if you do want to learn more about InfoPath and you feel like you're still a beginner, master class kind of takes it very, very slow. Starts from the very beginning, assumes you don't even know anything about forms, don't know anything about SharePoint, don't know anything about InfoPath. So if you are curious, feel free to check our training website at Qdabra.com, or you can email us at coursemanager@Qdabra.com. And the other quick announcement as well is, you know, we've heard your feedback. We know that link has been a problem for a lot of you folks. So we're looking to potentially switch our delivery platform as early as next week. Right now we're exploring GoToWebinar. So if you are familiar with that, I think that's been giving us less trouble than Link has. So stay tuned. If you are one of our weekly customers for the webinar, we'll send out an email letting you guys know what the new procedure is for joining these webinars. And again, keep the feedback coming. We really appreciate you letting us know how these webinars are, why you like them, why you don't like them. So yeah, definitely keep that feedback coming. Okay, so I'm going to take the time to answer a few questions if there are any. So yeah, Ralph asks if everything here also works in Office 365. Yes, it does work in Office 365. There is one exception though, the user profile service. The user profile service doesn't work in Office 365 out of the box. You do need Q rules in order to utilize the user profile service there. There is a function in Q rules that allows you to connect to Office 365. Otherwise, you will have to write your own custom code. But otherwise, everything else that you should work in Office 365. That's a good question, Ralph. So if you're depending on your license, it really depends. So I mean, I'm not too familiar with the Office 365 licenses, so I don't know 100% for sure whether these would work for something like this. But I would assume that if you do have the license to access 365 and you can open InfoPath Forms, then you would be able to access something like this. So if you do have that particular license, I don't know what the licenses, the names of them are. There's like E2, E3, and so forth. So I can't say exactly which license does what. But as long as your license can open up an InfoPath form in Office 365, then you would be able to go and do any other stuff as well. If there are no more questions, I just want to say thanks again, everybody, for attending. If you do have any follow-up questions or any follow-up feedback, feel free to email me directly or email our course manager, alias coursemanager@qdabra.com. So again, I just want to thank everybody and hope you have a great rest of your day.